Why does a foal stand on its own legs within an hour of being born, while a human child stays helpless for years and can't feed itself for almost a decade? At first glance, it looks like a monstrous mistake of evolution. A weak, slow, dependent infant is easy prey. Well, it's not a mistake. It's a bill. A bill for the organ inside your skull, one that cost our ancestors so much that the most defenseless among us had to pay it off. By the end of this video, you'll understand 3 things. Why the brain is the most expensive organ an AP could ever afford. Why every other primate slammed into an energy ceiling and got stuck there while we punched straight through it. And why you paid for your enormous head with your own childhood. And it all started, just like last time, around a fire. First, the scale of the problem. Nervous tissue is greedy to the point of indecency. Gram for gram, the brain burns energy about 9 times faster than the body's average. In an adult, it's only about 2% of your body weight, yet it claims roughly a fifth of all your calories. In a chimpanzee, the brain takes about half that share. Over a single day, your head eats around 500 calories, barely a hamburger, which you swallow essentially just so you'll have something to think with. Remember this organ. It's the one that once turned an ape into a thinking being. The only question is what it cost. And here's the catch. In the wild, an organ this hungry is a luxury that borders on suicide. Evolution doesn't hand out things like that for free. A big brain has to be paid for somehow. And the body paid. Back in 1995, anthropologists Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler noticed something strange. The human brain is 3 times bigger than a chimp's, yet our overall metabolic rate is almost the same. So where did the extra calories come from? They weren't found. They were reallocated. We have a second expensive organ, the gut, and ours is about 40% shorter than it should be for a primate our size. The picture is almost accounting. The body slashed its digestion budget and moved the savings straight into the brain's account. We traded long intestines for a big head. But a short gut only explains how we balanced the budget so we wouldn't go broke. It doesn't explain where the new money came from, because cutting costs and earning income are 2 completely different things, and the real source of that energy was hiding behind an invisible ceiling that every primate on the planet had crashed into. That ceiling was broken by fire. But to understand how exactly the flames did it, we first have to measure the ceiling itself. And that was done by the Brazilian neuroscientist Susana Herculano Huzel, a woman who literally dissolved brains into a kind of soup to count the cells inside them. She established that our head holds about 86 billion neurons, roughly 16 billion of them in the cortex, the very part responsible for thinking. And the link turned out to be rigid, no discounts. Every billion neurons costs about 6 calories a day. And the more of them you have, the more expensive the whole system is to keep running. And then, in 2012, she asked a simple question. How many hours a day would a primate have to chew raw food just to feed its brain? The answer was almost mocking. A gorilla would need about 8.8 hours of chewing a day, an orangutan nearly 8, a chimp more than 7. And a human, with our enormous brain, on a raw diet would have to eat for about 9.5 hours a day. Subtract sleep, and there's no time left for anything but chewing. There it is, the ceiling. The great apes are stuck with a brutal choice. Either a big body or a big brain, but not both at once. On raw food, King Kong is impossible. A giant with a body like that simply couldn't chew down enough calories for a smart head. And our ancestors were on that very same leash. And this is where fire enters the story and cuts the leash. Fire does what no tooth ever could. It digests food on the outside before it even reaches your mouth. Cooking pulls noticeably more usable calories out of the very same food. By Herculano Huzel's estimate, within her model as much as 3 times more. 9 hours of chewing shrink down to a couple of hours by the fire. And the freed up energy and freed up time can be poured straight into neurons. And our ancestors' brains began to grow. In the Australopithecines, who lived 3 to 4 million years ago, the brain was the size of a fist, about 450 cubic centimeters, like a chimp's. In Homo habilis, around 600. In Homo erectus, about 2 million years ago, already close to 1,000. In you and me, 1,350. Over a couple of million years, the head swelled threefold. There it is, the moment the ape by the fire began turning into a thinking creature. But a big brain on its own still doesn't make you smart. And exactly how fire finished the job will become clear soon. But all that energy that came flooding in didn't just vanish into thin air. The big brain came with a bill. Deferred, like an overdue invoice. And paying it fell not to the grown hunter by the fire. It fell to that very same helpless child we started with. And yet, this bill is only half the story. Fuel poured into the skull still doesn't explain where intelligence actually came from. The main answer is still ahead. In 2014, scientists worked out what a child's brain costs as it grows up, and the number puts everything in place. The brain's appetite peaks not in a newborn and not in an adult, but at around 4 to 5 years old. And at that moment, a child's brain claims about 43% of the child's entire daily energy and up to 2/3 of its resting metabolism. Almost half of everything a 5-year-old eats is hauled off by their own head. And here is the pattern this was all building toward. The hungrier the brain, the slower the body grows during that stretch. The two curves move toward each other. The peak of brain hunger lands exactly on the years when a child almost stops gaining height. The body seems to deliberately put its own construction on pause and send all the resources upward into the skull. And that's the answer to the question we opened with. Human childhood is so long and so helpless, not in spite of our big brain, but precisely because of it. We can't feed ourselves for years because the body spends those years building the most expensive organ in the animal kingdom. That same foal that stands up within an hour will never build a head like ours. It doesn't have the spare years, but we do. Fire didn't just feed the brain. It bought us a long childhood, without which there'd be no time to assemble that brain at all. And along the way, fire gave the brain something worth growing for. When cooking freed up the hours that used to disappear into endless chewing, our ancestors had, for the first time, a free evening, and they spent it not alone, but around a shared hearth. The fire became the first place where you had to keep track of who's whose friend, who owes whom, and who can be trusted. And that, according to the social brain hypothesis, is what inflates a primate's brain more than anything else. Life in a large and complex group. For humans, that ceiling of close relationships is estimated at around 150. And there's the whole answer to our main question. Fire didn't make us smart with fuel alone. It gave us 3 things at once: fuel for the brain, time to assemble it, and a reason to think. Not one of them on its own would have been enough. Together, they turned an ape into a human. So the same fire that, in the last video, pulled our jaw inward and made our faces soft, turned out to be not a cook, but a sponsor. It paid for an organ that devours 1/5 of all our energy, punched through the ceiling that every ape on the planet was stuck under, and forced our body to slow its own growth for the sake of a long childhood. The flame on the outside literally lit a flame inside the skull, and it's burning in you right now as you watch this video. But fire didn't stop there, because the very organ it grew soon figured out how to use that same fire to do the unthinkable: to leave Africa. Heat from the outside replaced our fur, let us survive the Ice Age, purify water, and harden the tip of a spear, and spread us across an entire planet where a bald tropical ape had no business surviving. How a single campfire conquered the whole world. In the finale of the trilogy, fire conquered the planet. And if this story lit something in you too, like the video and subscribe to Primal. See you around the fire.